Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Caruso III, and I am the publisher of the Capital Sports Report. I am also the host of the Capital Sports Report Live. Tonight, I'm joined by top fuel racing driver Lex Joon. Welcome to the show tonight, Lex.
Thank you, Anthony. Great. Thank you for having me. And let's go.
For those that do not know, how did you get started in racing? You were originally born in the Netherlands before you came to America, to
Correct.
the United States.
Yep. I'm born and raised in Amsterdam, Netherlands. So yeah, it's a long story, but to keep it a little bit shorter, it's I always like to ranch and to work on stuff. And when I found out about American cars, I was in love with them because those big V8s and automatic transmissions and power steering and all and everything that comes with it. So that basically what sparked my interest for American cars. And yeah, from that point on, I was interested in working with cars and growing into it. And the first thing basically I did, I was working on fans. I was a member of a fan club,
Okay.
and that started with a European fan. It was a brand that was a Bedford, and they had just four cylinders in it. So it started with taking the four cylinder out and put a V8 in it, and that back in the days was a Rover V8 because it was aluminum. Basically, it was a Buick motor, but it was sized down to a 3.5 liter. We put it in there with the automatic transmission and the rear axle. So that fan, instead of doing what is it, 90, 100 kilometers. So what is it, 60 miles? It was doing over 100 miles, and that was pretty
Wow.
cool. So we painted it, flame job on it, and then I was attending fan meetings, and that was pretty cool. But you know what? There were a couple of guys that had an American fan, so that's what basically what you want. So I had an opportunity to buy an Chevy fan from the American bookstore in Amsterdam. Bought that one. It had a stick shift in it, which was pretty rare, but it had a V8. So the first thing I did, put an automatic transmission in it, and then started to customize it. So and that came out pretty well. You know, it was candy apple red with all kind of special colors, special rims. It was raised. It had a marble floor in it. All kind of things. I won a lot of prizes with it, and but what happened was that we started racing with those fans during the fan meetings, and I thought that was a little bit of a shame for a car like that. So um, then I bought a '68 Camaro from a farmer. That's sitting somewhere in the grass. Didn't do anything with it. Had a straight six in it. Pulled the straight six out. I ordered a 454 here in the US from an RV, so I had a 4 bolt main. Put that in the Camaro, and then I pulled that behind the van to the van meetings, and that's how basically it started. Some of my other friends did the same, so now we started a form of drag racing. That's where it all started, and basically never stopped anymore.
Yes, until today, you still race.
I
I read
still
on
race.
your
Yep.
I read on your bio that, like we talked about before I began this, that you started out as a paper boy, and then you eventually worked into a mechanic, and then you eventually, from a mechanic, you got the itch to go drag racing.
Correct. Well, you know, my one of my first jobs was paperboy. I was bringing papers. We had a special deal where you had a certain part of Amsterdam, and that was yours, and you had to deliver papers every day. And so that's how it started. That was my first job, and yeah, you know, looking around, see what's going on. You want to move on. So I started working on cars and things like that, and but yeah, you know, it sparked something, but it's still not what I wanted. So Back then, I was working for a courier service, and I was maintaining their cars. And I thought it was okay, but I thought I could do better. At the end of the day, I worked my way through it, and I became part owner of the company. And at the end of the day, I became an owner. 200, more than 200 people working for me, and at the same time, that gave me an opportunity to start drag racing. We had some funds and some meetings, and the place to build race cars, which was pretty cool. Back in the days, it was really hard to find parts. It's not like nowadays you climb behind a computer, you Google, I need a rear axle, and there they are. I had to all make it myself. I built my own motors, made my own transmissions, rear axles. I built my own chassis, everything. And my problem, I got a problem. I always want to go faster. I always want to raise the bar. So it starts with a V8 Camaro, and it ends up with a top fuel dragster and everything in between. But yeah, that's how it started.
Before my next question, Ashley Dawson said hi from Australia. So it's got to be early morning over there in Australia.
Yeah, it's getting some later on the day, but yeah, we got fans everywhere in the world. That's one of the cool things about drag racing. We got a big fan following in Europe. We got a fan following in Australia. So that's one of the cool things about drag racing.
Yes, I would like to talk about that. For those that do not know, one of the tracks that you raced at is a very marquee a track, and it's kind of like, well, now it's called Lucas Oil at Indianapolis, Raceway Park in Brownsburg, Indiana, where kind of close by where you live.
Yep.
You raced at Santa Pod over in England, and that's very, very popular. Could you talk about racing at that track?
Well, Santa Pod is a really famous track in Europe. Don Garlits has raced there. A lot of famous people from the US have raced there. And for me, it was the first, when I went outside the Netherlands, the first track I went to was Santa Pod. My friends always went there to watch drag racing, and they asked me if I wanted to go with them. And I said, well, I'm okay to go there, but I go there when I can bring my car. I want to race there. And that's what happened. And people in England, they are die-hard drag racing fans. It was awesome. I never forget it. It was one of those meetings where you could run what you brung, basically. That's how it called.
Okay.
And it was in the evening, part of it. And yeah, it was, it was something that only sparked more of my desire to be in drag racing and be successful. So being the first Dutchman going outside the Netherlands and race over there in Center Pot, that was pretty big. And I always, I always liked to go to England, to Center Pot. It was always a thing, because you need to understand, between the Netherlands and England, there is water. So you always have to cross the North Sea, which you can go to Rotterdam and then go to England, but that was always really expensive. So 9 out of 10 we drove or to Belgium or to France and took a ferry there. So that was always a little bit of a deal to go there, but it was always fun to do. Remember, if you go from the Netherlands, where everybody drive the same as here in the US, you go to England, you have to suddenly drive on the other side of the road, because they drive at the left side of the road. There is a lot of stuff to it, but the English fans are tremendous. They are awesome, and a lot of them still follow me. And almost every week I got emails and messages from, we miss you here, you have to come back. It's a great track. Not so long ago, they converted it to a concrete track, which is pretty cool. The last time I ran there, it was still asphalt.
Okay.
But yeah, great memories.
What was it like racing for you at home in the Netherlands?
Well, that's something else, because I was one of the front men being in drag racing, and we don't really have a drag race track in the Netherlands. The
Okay.
only thing we have is in the north of the Netherlands, you got a place that's called Drachten, and there is an airstrip, an airfield, and it's basically from Mr. Phillips, the guy that invented the bulbs
Okay.
and all those things. And we were able to rent that track or that airfield 3 times a year, and then we converted it to a drag strip, and that was always a lot of fun. And a lot of people always came to the airfield to watch us and to see us race there. And yeah, still got really good memories about it.
There's actually here in the United States. There's actually several. I've seen some. I don't know exactly when they were this year, but in the past, I know that there's actually been races at old airstrips that are no longer used, and they used it for racing. They do that here today.
Yeah, and that's basically how drag racing started. You know, they wanted to take it from the streets because even in the 50s there were races on the street, and Wally Parks, basically the founder of the
Correct.
NHRA, wanted to get it from the street to the track. So what do? You go to an airfield and you start racing over there. So that's basically the roots where drag racing is coming from.
When you were still overseas, you were racing, but you were also juggling businesses that you referred to earlier. Could you talk about how you juggled both of them? You when you were racing, you couldn't really focus on your business, so you had to have other people to handle that for you.
Yeah, well, you know, it's to have a business and to be in racing. That's a task, and um, there are enough people here that do that. The thing is to have people in place to run your business when you're not there,
Correct.
or to have people in place that can run your racing department when you are working on your business side. And that's always been a thing, you know. In the Netherlands, drag racing is not really a popular sport. It's not even really
Okay.
known. So to find sponsorship for something like that, it's really difficult. So there is always a balance you need to find between your work and making money, and then being in racing. But without the money, you cannot race. So that balance, you know, there is always, or you need to get your work done and make sure everything is settled so you can go to a race
Yes.
and spend the money you need, and at the same time that your customers are taken care for, but also that your race program is ready to go, because most work before you go to a race is done in the race show. Track
Correct.
racing is
Yes.
key. That's always, and I'm a strong believer in that. And every time we prove that point, because if you bring a race car to the racetrack that's ready to go, it performs a lot better than when you need to do a lot of work still at the racetrack.
That Lex, you touched on this that when you were racing in the Netherlands, it wasn't a popular sport. So did you have trouble like you have today with sponsors and finding people to help you out with your race team?
Sure. Here in the US, it's more it's a better known sport. If you talk about drag racing, more people know about it. I won't say it's easy to find sponsorship here. I thought it would be. Uh, I expected to. I won't say I expect it to be easier, but given the circumstances right now where we in, you know, with well, first we had COVID, and then we have the war in Europe, which also is affecting our sport, and especially guys like me that have their roots in Europe. So there's always a challenge, but here in the USA, drag racing can be a profession or is a professional sport. There are a lot of people that are living from drag racing. In Europe, that's basically not the case. In Europe, you got teams, but they basically fund the racing program themselves. So that's a big difference. So the climate here is it's a lot better to attract companies than it is in Europe.
For those that do not know, today, today you race a Top Fuel Dragster, but when you were racing over in Europe, you raced a funny car. It was actually called Top Fuel Funny Car.
A fuel funny car, yeah. You can see behind me. You can see some pictures from funny cars.
Yes,
I'm basically a funny car guy. I love to race funny cars. I started racing alcohol funny cars, I think in '95 until what is it, 2002, I think. Always a lot of fun. Learned a lot. I believe it's one of the hardest cars to drive. Um, Racing alcohol funny cars that really teach me how to run and drive a race car. So that was a lot of fun. And then I got an opportunity in 2003 to buy a fuel funny car, a nitro funny car,
yes.
which yeah,
That was actually
it was a
one
hard
of my
decision to make.
questions.
Sorry.
That was actually one of my questions I have for you. It was called the MPM Top Fuel Racing Team. You purchased it in 2005, or you began racing with it in 2005.
Well, what happened, we first started running the fuel funny car in '03,
Oh,
which
okay.
yeah, and that's where my nitro experience started, which was really cool. It's a nitro funny car. I can tell you it's one of the coolest things to drive. But what happened is that things didn't go the way they should go. The car got I got into a fire, and that was pretty nasty. And I basically should not have survived that fire. It was really, as Gerda and I call it, my ticket was not up that I could get out of there. And we found that racing funny cars in Europe was not really a smart decision because the tracks were not up to the disasters that can happen and to help the drivers out. So um, then there came an opportunity in '04 to rent a Top Fuel Dragster. So we made a deal with NPM and we started racing Top Fuel '04 in a rented car, as I call it, which did not really work out in the sense it was first year for me that I drove a car that was not my own. I learned a lot. One of the things I learned is that it was the first year and the last year I wanted to do that because it's not me. I was way too much up to the owner and tuner how the car would run, and that was not really what I wanted. So in the end of '04, NPM and Lex Joon Racing decided to buy our own car, and that was a Top Fuel car, and we bought it here in the United States. We bought it from David Barker, and that's where our basically our Top Fuel experience started. And in '05 we started racing that car, and in that year we became FIA Top Fuel champion.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that in a few questions, actually.
Yeah.
But first, before you won the championship, you recorded several accomplishments. The first one was you became the first Dutchman to go 300 miles an hour in 2005 when you went 304 miles an hour in 19 seconds, and that passed. Do you remember that pass? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure, you try to achieve certain things. And in '04, we drove a Top Fuel Dragster first year. That car did not really have the performance. Back then, we were running quarter mile, and so what you try to do, you want to run a 4 seconds run, and you want to go over 300 miles. And in '04, that never happened. So the first time in '05, we were running in the 4 seconds and running over 300 miles. That was for us a big achievement. And and being the first Dutchman and still the only Dutchman that's running over 300 miles as I do is still, I think, pretty cool. You try to achieve certain things in life, and people will think about it. Well, how important is it to run over 300 miles in a car? I think it's pretty cool. When you're in a restaurant or you walk down the street or you sit in a stadium, not a lot of people can say, "Hey, I'm doing over 300 miles an hour in my car." Those things are pretty cool, and to achieve that with your own team, that's even for me. It's even bigger because uh, a lot of drivers you see out there are driving a car that's not their own. And
Yes.
they basically pay the
Or
owner to
rented.
drive the car. Yeah,
Right.
and which is totally fine. But for me, there is a bigger achievement to be an owner of a car, to drive the car, and in our scenario nowadays, tune the car as well. So because it sounds maybe easy, but there's so much to it. But the cool thing about everything is you got everything in your own hands,
Yes.
and there's nobody that's going to tell you this is how you're going to do it. And the success will come your way as long as you keep working hard to achieve
Correct.
it. And the other thing is, if you make a deal with a partner or a sponsor, you don't have to wait and see if the owner will do his job to make that deal work. No, because you're the owner, you will make sure the partners are taken care of.
Yes. I agree on that one. Also in 2005, you also accomplished another record. You were the first Dutchman to go 4 seconds at 3.67. Was that the same pass as the 3:04.19, or that was a separate pass?
That might have been the same pass. I think to run a 4 second, you need to you probably run over 300 miles an hour, so that probably comes together, and and then from that point on, you keep plugging away to go faster and faster because it probably start at a 4.9, then you want to run in the 4.80s, then you are looking to run in the 4.70s, and you keep plugging away on those numbers, and once you got it, and again, I told you earlier in this interview, I always want to raise the bar, so I want to go faster. And that's the cool thing about drag racing. The scoreboard will never lie. The scoreboard will tell you what you did, what you achieved, if you make a better run than the run before. And that's about ET and it's about speed. So, yeah.
Yes. That season in 2005, you won the FIA World Championship. What does that mean to you to win that championship?
Well, that was huge. That was such a, to be honest, I've never ever thought about it that it would happen. And that year we started the first race of the season in '05 was the main event, and that's at Center Pot. And I hired a tuner because I did not feel I had the knowledge yet to tune a top fuel car. And so the first run, and back then we did not run Willy Bars yet. The first run, the car came pretty high in the front. And we came back and I told my tuner, you saw what happened. He said, yeah, I will take care of it. And then the second run, the car made a wheel stand. And I almost lost the car, and the car came down, and the front suspension was broken. There was a lot of damage. So everybody thought we were done, and I tried to find some parts to fix it. Nobody could help me. And what happened then is we found a dragster on display, and I asked the owners if you could use the suspension, and they told us, yeah, go ahead. But it did not fit. So we worked through the night, and we got it that it was on the car, and we fixed some other stuff that was broken. And next day we had to qualify the car still. So when we were in the staging lanes, people thought, well, what is he doing here? Because basically what happened there, you cannot drive the car anymore. So drove the car, made the burnout, and the front end was a little bit wobbly, but I think, you know what, let's give it a try. So I made a pass, qualified the car. And the cool thing is we won that race. And we ran the final against John Webster, who helped me. He's a chassis builder in England, who helped me to fix the car. We ran the final against each other. And we won the race. So the first race for the FIA Championship, although the car was hurt, we won it. And from that point on, we kept plugging away at it. And winning that 2005 FIA Top Fuel Championship was, yeah, it was basically a story as we go through. Every time I'm on the track, there's always something. It's never easy. It never comes like it goes the way you expect. There are always things that are not working out and you need to work on. That's why, you probably will touch on that later. That's why we got that Never Quit logo
Yes.
on there, because it's always a fight. And sometimes I think about, like, why do you want to do this? Because it's sometimes so tough. Sometimes you almost lose your life. A couple of times I could have lost my life, but you keep plugging away at it. And I think the answer is, when you know about the difficult things in life, you really appreciate the good things way more because you know how bad it can be. So winning that '05 championship, going to Monaco and being there with the F1 racers and all the other people that won FIA championships, that was something we never forget. Yeah.
I want to ask you this. You talked about your cars overseas didn't have Willy Bars. Was that all the time they didn't have Willy Bars? So you might have did like a like Leah had with her car break in St. Louis a few years ago, or Don Garlis with the rollover, not rollover, but the car went backwards.
Yeah. Well, there was, there was no rule that you
Okay.
needed wheelie bars, but later on, it became mandatory to run wheelie bars on those dragsters, because it was more a safety issue than anything else. And once it was mandatory, we started also using them as a tuning aid to get the cars down the track from the starting line on. So, and now there is a rule: you don't only need a wheelie bar, but it cannot be higher at a certain point, because then it's not safe. So basically, it's a safety thing, and it's mandated now. You cannot run without.
Also, I'd like to mention this because you talked about when you were overseas, you went to uh, people and like the chassis wasn't being used, and you asked them if you can use it. And today, like teams are always willing to help. I'm sure you see this today. Teams, when I'm at the racetrack, they're like, "I'm willing to help you, whatever you need." And this instance comes up because I was at Maple Grove in September, and the Leverage Racing team with Joe Morrison, they needed an ejector, and they got in contact with or someone from this Ant Mob drag racing team.
In
They said,
Canada,
"Well, we got a injector, but you got to come to Canada to get it." So they drove to Canada and like right by the border, and got there like 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning of the Maple Grove race, and then came back to Pennsylvania. It was crazy.
it is crazy, and I think it's crazy because there are enough injectors on the track over there that somebody can lend them an injector. But that's me. That's my European background. I'm pretty black and white. I think, why the heck this injector needs to come all the way from Canada while you're at the racetrack, and there are trailers there that have 2, 3, 4 injectors in there. But that's a fight we small teams sometimes have to challenge, and that's also where our never quit attitude is coming from. But you're right; it came from Canada, and basically it came from Smack Smith, who I raced a lot in England back in the days, because he was also living in England back then, and the wheelie I just told you about that happened, the wheel stand, he was in the other lane back then, and the question he had, when he came over the finish line, he asked the question, can the guy ever came, yeah, if I came back down again, or if I still was back up there. But yeah, I thought it was really cool to see that they were helped out and they were able to put their race car back on the track again.
Yeah, the Anthill Mob drag racing team said there are very few people who get to see the behind the scenes into what it takes to get these cars to and on the track. And I don't believe there is anyone more dedicated to this sport than Gary Leverage. At the end of their personal best run in Maple Grove last night, so that was Friday, the front wing injector broke at 313 miles an hour, and before they could watch the replay, we were already offering up our wing and our ejector to get them back on track. Luckily, they sourced a wing at the track, but no luck with an ejector. Not giving up that easy, Gary and a couple crew guys made the 7-hour trip through the night to the Canadian border at Niagara Falls, while Aiden was at the shop at 4 a.m. unbolting parts, and then ferries came and picked them up to meet Gary. They're currently on the way back to the track to get the car back together for Q2 after lunch. Talk about dedication. They deserve some type of award and recognition for their efforts. And they can't wait to see them back on the track this afternoon. So that was from the Ant Hill Mob drag racing team.
Yep. It's a story about never quit and keep going. You get it done.
Yes.
Yep.
In 2013, you made the decision, or prior to that, to come here to the United States. Could you talk about chasing your dream here, making the switch from living overseas to now living in the United States to pursue a racing profession full time?
Yeah. Well, it's basically you start all over again. When
Yep.
when we were granted green cards because of our achievements in drag racing, that was pretty cool. So what do? Do you go, or do you say, well, it's just one step too far? And Gerda told me back then, well, you need to make the decision. I'm not going to make it for you. But one thing, if you don't go, you're probably going to regret it the rest of your life because you don't know what could have been. So what you need to understand is if you make the decision, you basically stop your life in Europe and you need to start all over again in the US. And that's what we did. We had to
Yes.
to sell our shops. We had to move everything we could move in a 40-foot container, which was, everything we had in the house, our household, but also our racing program. We had horses we had to take care of because we could not take them with us. There are all kinds of things that are happening, and that needs to happen in a couple of months. Then you need to find a place here to live. You need to arrange all that. And then basically everything starts all over again. When you're a multi-millionaire, it's not so difficult because you can just buy anything you need and there you are. For us,
Yes.
we really had to start all over again. So moving in 2013, there was a lockdown here. So when we came here in October 1, we could not get anything because the government was closed. So that was a pretty rough start. Our container was sitting in New York. We could not get it here because we had no social security numbers, nothing. So it was a rough start. But you know what? You do what you have to do. And we found jobs, we found work, we found our place. At first, our racing program was in the storage unit because we had nothing to put it in. And we start working on to get the race car back on the track again. But in the meantime, every year you don't race, rules are updated.
Yep.
Yeah, they are changing. So by the time in 17, 18 we were ready to go, we still had to put a lot of money in everything to get it. So we were allowed to get a car back on the track. Being out of the car for a couple of years, then NHRA wants you to basically re-license
Yep.
it again. So that's where we started in 18 to get the license activated again. And in 19 we attended our first race here at the US Nationals. But yeah, in between there is a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of, to get things going. And Gert and I worked really hard to be able to get to that point where we could acquire a trailer, where we had a pickup truck to pull it, and to find a small place where we could work on our race car. We had friends that helped us with it. That was pretty awesome. But when you come here in 2030, you don't know anybody. You really
Yeah.
need to start all over again. Uh,
Yes.
if I would do it again, absolutely. Is it simple? Absolutely not. Uh, is it simple now? No, it's still not simple. We are still not there where we want to be. But what do? Every day that's given by our good Lord, you need to make the most out of it, and that's what we do. Gerda is working really hard. She's a commercial parts pro in at O'Reilly, and she's doing a fantastic job. In July she was the best salesperson in the whole country. Can you believe something like that? It's unreal.
Wow. Yeah.
It's we keep looking a way to get it done. Is it simple? Absolutely not. Am I complaining? Oh no, because there are a lot of people that are in a lot worse position than we are. This is something we want to do. We want to live a dream. We started as a
Yes.
paper boy, and we want to end up, as a champion. And sure, I'm getting older, but I still got all the drive, and I know I still can drive a race car, and we get there. And sure, it's not simple, but we never quit. We keep going.
Yes. When you came here to the United States and you had to get relicensed, who actually signed your license?
Well, we had a couple of people that were wanted to do that. One was Bruce Litton.
Okay.
He's basically here from around here, and he became a good friend of us. Kyle Wurzel, he helped us out,
Yes.
and um, TJ Sisso.
Yes.
His dad signed also off on for us because TJ Sisso, his dad also still has, or at least back then had still a top fuel license. So I was really honored that he wanted to sign off as well. Yeah, pretty proud on people like that helping us out.
Your huge motto is never quit. For
Correct.
those that do not know, talk more about how you came up with it, and you talked about this inferno that you experienced and you overcame that, and you're not quitting. And you see that with so many race teams today. They'll have so many problems, and they will still race like the next week or a few weeks later after having a significant problem. In other sports they might just like quit, but drag racing they don't quit.
No, and I don't know what it is, other than I cannot really speak for others. But what I know is, um, I know I can do this. I know I can be successful in this. I know I can be better. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but at the end of the day, it's a competition. Who is at the finish line
Yes.
first? I know I can do a better job than a lot of people out there. That's why we came to the USA, because winning basically everything there is to win in Europe. What do? You can do the same thing again. I can probably be 2 or 3 or 4 times an FIA European champion, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, but for me, that's not a challenge anymore. I need to challenge
Yes.
myself, and in the same time, I'm also about giving back.
Yes.
I'm racing for 40 years. I learned a lot. I have to learn. I had to learn everything myself. There was not really somebody that told me how to do it, especially not in Europe, because nobody knows anything about it. So um, that's. I always say it would be pretty sad to one day when I'm in my grave. I cannot. I'll take it all with me. It's way. I think it's way better, way cooler to share my experience with others, and in the meantime, show the world that if you don't quit and keep going, it will happen and you will be successful. It won't come by itself. You need to work really hard for it. Success
Correct.
is something nobody will give it to you. The
Correct.
only way to reach success is to work hard.
Yes.
Look around you, see what's going on nowadays. A lot of people think it will come by itself, or they are complaining like, it's not happening. Listen, work hard, work every day, and success will come. And
Yes.
absolutely. So now and then I think, well, I'm ready. Let's go. And it did not happen. And but at the same time, we changed some stuff around because if it's not happening, you need to ask yourself why is it not happening, and then you need to change plans. You need to change things. That's what we did in our race team. And since last year, things started to become better. And this year, every race we run personal best. And there we go. We found the key to make it better and to be successful. And absolutely, we're still not there where we want to be, but we found the path to get it going and to make it happen. And if you can, get that message out there through what we do, that never quit on the back of my rear wing of my dragster. To be honest, I put it on there for myself. That's how it started because I was ready in 18, 19 to just quit because it just was so tough to get going. And then I put it on the back of my wing, never quit, and I put it on there for myself because I said, you cannot let it go now. You need to keep going. And then what happened is that people saw that, and then they could do something with it. So then people started engaging with me and said, I love what you do. I said, what do you mean? Your never quit attitude. I said, so what do you mean? He said, well, I had cancer and I did not know how to deal with it. And then we saw your team, and then I told myself to man up and get it done. And you know what? I'm cancer free now. Stories like that. I didn't do anything for the guy as far as I know, but
Yeah.
I made him to do it himself. How cool is that? You
Yeah.
know,
Very cool.
I have no ego, totally not. But when I can help people, that's awesome. That's the same reason why we work with Save 22 veterans. Did you know? You probably know this, but people that are listening might not know this. Save 22, the 22 stands for the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. And I believe there are even more than 22. But
Yes.
22 veterans a day commit suicide. That's terrible. That's awful, and we need to change that. So, listen, I always say the veteran that commits suicide, it's really sad, really bad, and it should have been prevented. But 9
Yes.
out of 10, they leave a family behind, wife
Yes.
and kids, or maybe a husband and kids. It can be also. So, if we can save only one, it's already worth it. It's the
Yes.
same deal. Never quit. So we tell our veterans, never quit, keep going, find a way out of it.
Yes. I agree on that. And today it's so bad. You see, like so many people will commit suicide because like the situation we were put in 2 years ago or some other issues they got going on, and they don't want to. They think that that's the only way out. They don't look at be patient. Things will change. It's not permanent. Um, a situation can change tomorrow. You can be in one crappy situation today, and tomorrow an opportunity comes your way that be life changing. You just never know. But some
Well,
people don't look at it
you're
like
right. You're right about that. But at the same time, you also need to understand, and that's sometimes so tough. But you need to understand if you work on it to make it better, it will happen. You
yes,
you got the key to do it. Look in
yes,
the mirror and tell yourself, listen, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this happen. And you know what? There is no better feeling when you see the success coming.
yes.
And there you go.
Before I get to racing in the past few years here in the United States, I forgot to list it on my question, but I was just on your page, and I wanted to mention this. You had a special visitor at your shop the other day. It says your wife Gerda and yourself are proud and honored to welcome the Consul General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Bart. mm,
12
Yeah, to
Yeah,
Lex Joon shop in Brownsburg, Indiana.
yeah.
Could you talk
Ain't
about
that cool?
having him as your visitor?
Consul General Bart 12 has been a consul in many countries already, and Yeah, he sent us an email, or at least his one of his people did, and asked us if he could visit us because he thought our story was pretty cool, and he wanted to know more about it. So that's how that started, and so yeah, he was at our in our race shop last week, and we had a great time. He thought he saw the truck and the trailer and then the race car, and we spent almost 2 hours in the shop, and then we went out for lunch here. Um, yeah, we are pretty honored, and that's drag racing. That's being in a sport. That's just keep going after it, and
Yes.
then you got things like that happening. Yeah.
In 2008, you made your first two appearances in the NHRA. You said the first one was the U.S. Nationals, the marquee event of the entire schedule. What was it like trying to make it into the field of the U.S. Nationals?
Well, the first time we raced here when we came, the first time I raced in the US was in '09, but that's where we still were living in Europe. So we
Okay.
shipped the car here, and we raced in Vegas and Pomona. But the first time here when we started living here, the first time here was in 2019. We entered for the US Nationals. We did not qualify, but we I think we made 3 qualifying passes. Um, yeah, to be honest, not to be qualified is a bummer, but the fact that you are part of the greatest and biggest race in drag racing, that's something you never forget. And um, not a lot of people understand this if you're not in drag racing, but it's like the Daytona 500. It's
Yes.
our biggest race in the world. So me being from Europe, being part of those races is special and never get old. And I know there are a lot of top fuel drivers in Europe that would trade places with me right away. So to be able to do that, that's a blessing. And because those fields at the US Nationals are always really big, and the best cars basically in the world always show up, it's really tough to qualify. And we did not make it yet, but that's one of the things on my to-do list now, to get a competitive car out there for 2023 to qualify for that race, and and it will happen because I'm going to tell you it's going to happen, and I just told you we just don't quit until it's done.
Yes. And I like to say when you believe something, it's faith. It's believing in something that you don't see, but you believe, and when you believe it, you're gonna achieve it.
And that's what it is, and I don't go to church every week, but I believe there is something out there, and I know I got help. There are some things that happened in my life that I just told you a little bit about it, that I should
The
not have
fire.
survived, and I did. And the wheelie I made back in Santa Pod was the same deal. That car should have had flipped over. The car came up and it was almost just straight up. And
Wow.
what happened is I thought, okay, I go over. I was ready for whatever would happen, and then the car stopped. Like something hit the back of the car. Something hit the track and it stopped, and then it came back. And I can tell you, there's nothing to see on that race car that anything hit the track.
Wow.
It's those things make you wonder. But I can tell you one thing: it happened. I was there, and I'm sure somebody helped me out. And I got a faith that as long, and again, it won't come for free, and it won't come for you need to work hard. You need
Yes.
to keep believing in what you do. You need to, as far as I see, I'll give back to whatever I can. I will help people whatever I can. So now and then I maybe go a little bit too far in it, and it really can hurt me. But at the same time, I believe in keep going, and it will happen. Yeah, there's nothing as powerful as what is in here.
Yes, your brain. Yes. After 2018, those two events, unfortunately, 19, well, 19 was a full schedule, but 2021 was a limited schedule. 2020 was definitely a limited schedule. 2021 um, depends on the sponsors. If you had sponsors, you were able to race. Some of them might not have been able to afford to race, so you did some racing. As a driver, you want to be out there, and with this new program, you want to race as much as you can, but when you have limited funding, you're kind of stuck. So
Hmm.
you were only able to compete when you were able to compete at the races that you were selected, and that had to be tough when you want to be out there all the time.
Well, the thing is, you're not selected. And basically, we selected which races we go. So
Yes,
you got right now, you got what is it, 22 races a season. So like
yes,
this coming weekend, there is a race in Dallas.
Dallas,
If I
yes,
wanted to go there, I can go there. But the thing is, it costs a lot of money.
yes.
I mean, because we don't really have sponsors, we really need to pick and choose where we go. Uh, you need to understand, and it's always tough to talk about money, but uh,
Oh, I know how much these things cost. I know how much every pass is. $15,000 for every pass, so it's a lot of money to be driving one of these things.
so Gerda and I basically fund this from our paychecks.
Yes.
I'm,
Well,
I'm,
that's actually my next question.
I'm a truck driver, and Gerda is a parts
Yeah.
salesperson, and that's how we basically fund our racing. Which
Yes.
and you already touched on it. That's why we, last week in St. Louis, we just did not qualify for the field. Although the car should have qualified, the car can run 3.7s. It's showing us all the time, but it's about putting it together.
Yes.
And we have a lot of things that are just not working out the way it should, the moment it should happen. And going through all that, I said, okay, you know what? Uh, I'm not going to say we're going to park the car, but I want to wait till I got enough funding to run the car again, so we have enough parts in the trailer, so we can run every qualifying run because you need the data, and you can create circumstances around you that when we put the car out there, it's ready to go, and it will make the run we put in there because that's where we are. Uh, who out there is running a car that's 23 years old?
Hmm. Let me
Nobody.
see.
That's simple.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody that's the top
Oh,
four.
I can tell you that I can answer my own question. There's nobody.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say that's going to hinder me running 370s, but at the same time, when this car was built back in '99, those motors made maybe 7,000 horsepower. Now we are far over 10,000. So the way the chassis is built, it's basically not in balance for what we do right nowadays.
Okay.
So we need to upgrade some stuff. And although we run on a really limited budget, we still are able to run certain numbers. Yeah. What do you think? What will happen if we got some more funding available?
More funding. That'd be quicker passes, more parts. You could do a whole bunch more things.
You know what I mean? So, and Greg and
And
I
maybe
talked
this will
about
help
it.
you with exposure.
Yeah. So we need to give ourselves a fair chance. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm really working hard on the funding side of things to find companies, partners that are interested and willing to work with us. But again, it won't come by itself. You need to put time and effort in it.
Right.
So if I'm on a racetrack and I need to prepare a car, I cannot work on the money side of things. So
Yes.
what we are doing right now is that, okay, the car is ready to go. Basically, if you find a partner, you can just go. In the meantime, we keep working on this part, on the money side of things, so we can upgrade our stuff. And then the next time we go out, we will be ready. And hopefully, we will find enough funding. We can run a full season. And after that, another full season. And after that, another full season. And the bottom line is we would like to add one or two cars so we can give talented drivers a chance to be out there, because right now it's really a challenge for people that have the skills and the knowledge to drive race cars but don't have the money.
Yes.
It's really a problem. So if we can help them out, again, giving back, that would be one of the things we would like to do. And maybe one day I can be back in a funny car again, although I know Gerda won't like it because she almost saw me killed in one. But before I stop racing, I would love to go back in one of those floppers. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of Gerda, like you alluded to, you guys race. You're a truck driver. She's a sales manager, I believe you said, at O'Reilly's.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't remember what race it was, but you guys were kind of, they mentioned it, Joe or Alan was mentioning it on a race one time where for that particular race, you guys left after work on like a Thursday night and
Yep.
made it to the racetrack on Friday morning to race.
Yep.
And most people don't even know like what you guys go through, especially you guys, because like the other rigs they arrive like Wednesday, and they're Wednesday through Monday or Wednesday through Sunday, and you got to work, and whenever work is done, then you guys can leave.
Yeah, so like St. Louis, the last race we did, we left Thursday morning really early. We were at the track at say 11, so we set up the pits and everything. And not even all the crew members were there because some of them still have their own work because they're all
Yes.
volunteers, right? So and then on Sunday afternoon we take everything apart and then we left for home again. We were home Sunday evening late, and Monday morning we were back on our job again. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, that's got to be tough because you get very little sleep, and especially when you're racing, you got very little limited sleep. Especially as a truck driver, yeah, that's got to be tough sometimes.
Well, again, I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
happy, I'm alive, I'm happy, I'm healthy.
yep,
And you know what? Every day, that's a God-given day. I'll make the
yes,
most out of it, and that's what we do. Yeah.
yes. Speaking of St. Louis, you were just tried to get. You just tried. You were in the mix for that race, but we talked about how you just barely missed. You got 17th, and the top 16 cars made it into the field.
Yeah.
At that race, you ran a personal best at 3.87.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that pass?
Yeah. Friday evening was the first qualifier, and we had an issue in the clutch, so I had to abort the run. And we had a lot of tire shake as they call it. So Saturday there were two qualifiers left, so we wanted to make the first pass to see what the car would do. I had made some changes on the fuel system the week before we went, and I needed to see if the fuel system was dialed in okay. So warranted the car for the first qualifier, got everything ready. I topped off the tank, and then the fuel tank started leaking. So what happened in the run on Friday evening, the tire shake caused a weld to crack. So that was a problem. And yeah, that's one of the problems with what we have to go through right now, a low inventory. I did not have a spare tank, so we had to fix the tank. I could not make the second qualifier. We fixed the tank for the third qualifier, but then that's the only qualifier left. So what do you do? So the car left the starting line pretty well. It was on its way to run a 378 probably. And then as we call it dropped the cylinder at 2.2 seconds, I believe, which it's taking over 1,000 horsepower away. And I could drive in the car, I could feel it drop the cylinder, but I could keep it in the groove because sometimes it will push the car out of the groove.
Yes.
I could keep it in the groove. So I thought, you know what, we got one chance, keep my foot in, let's see if he can make it in. And so although the car only ran on 7 cylinders, we still ran at 387. The speed was down, it was only 310, which tells you that the power wasn't really there. So it is what it is. We gave it a try, and I'm happy we did that because at least the car showed it was running better, although it was only running on 7 cylinders. So you can imagine what it. We would have qualified the car when it would have run on 8. When we would be able to make that run on Friday, I could have made adjustments for Saturday, and the car would have been in. And that's what I mean. We have to fight a lot of things that if things come a little bit more our way, it will be easier. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure we got enough parts in the trailer.
Yes. In the Facebook post that I saw, that also alluded to the 3.87 pass from St. Louis. You, you or someone who wrote the post said that it's time for a change. What are you alluding to there? Parts, crew. Well, you said crew volunteer, but what are you alluding to there for the change? Because your season right now is technically over because you're not going to Dallas, Las Vegas, or Pomona, correct?
Oh no, but if somebody shows up and tells me they want to see us out there and they leave a check behind, we will be there. Uh,
Yeah.
but the thing is, what I the vision about that sentence is that things need to change because we at least we proved ourselves, and basically we were, but at least we proved ourselves we can do this. We run on a budget. Nobody else
Yeah, I did see that as well.
is able to do this.
Yeah.
So what I need to do, what we need to change, is to create a budget so we can be out there and we can hire some people, and we still have but we are able to hire some people, and we are able to put to buy a newer or maybe a new race car which will handle a lot better, and buy some deeper inventory so we are ready. Because the thing is, we are racing against multi-time $1 million teams.
Yes.
The bigger teams out there spend between 3 and 6 million a year.
Yes. Yep.
So that's easy over 100,000 a race. Now, sure, I would love to see it, but I can do it probably half of it and still be successful. But what we do right now, we cannot keep doing that because that's at the end of the day. It's just too much work. The effort is there, but it's just not going to happen. I'm not here to be on a list and participate on the starting list, but not be part of race day. I want to be part of race day. I want to qualify for every race, and I always say
You want
when
to
you're
be
in
a
it,
player and win the race.
yeah, when you're in it, you can win it, and
Yes.
I know we can do that. I know we have a plan. We got the people behind us. That if we got the funds, they will work with us, and we will be successful, 100%. Because why? Because I'm telling you this, and we never quit to get it done. We became champions in Europe. We set almost every record. We basically won every race. I want to do the same here. That's why we came here. We are not here just to be a player. And when we left from Europe to the US, there were people that told us it's not going to happen because, to be honest, no, everybody that tried to do this, because there were people before us that moved from Europe to the US, nobody got it done. Well, you got the wrong guy here because we will get it done. Because
Yes,
that's
they're small-minded individuals, and they think because they can't do it, you can't do it. That's the
hey,
way I look
listen,
at it.
I've done it all. And one of the things Gert and I always said when we started racing alcohol funny cars, I qualified always, but we always lost first round, always. And we told each other there will be a day we're gonna beat that guy. And you know what? That day came. And then
Yes,
we beat another guy, and then we start winning races, And that was not the newest car, but we got it done. And that's
yes,
because it's here. It's the bottom line is it's not only about money, it's also about the heart.
yes,
But the thing here is we got the heart, but now we need the money.
yes. So Lex, I have a few more questions before we close this out.
That's right.
Teams today and I'm sure your little team experiences as well. They're dealing with the parts problem where if they order a part today, it might, well, now, if you order a part in October, it probably come in 2023 sometime. But there's people that I talked to earlier this year that ordered parts in, like, say, March or April, and they didn't get them until like September. So it's a challenge for you guys to get parts. And
Yes.
now the parts, let's say, may have been $500, and now it's like $1,000 or $2,000 for the same part that you paid $500 for a few months ago.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And there are crew chiefs out there that came to us and they asked us how in the world are you guys doing this? Because for us as a team that basically got unlimited resources, we cannot get this done. How in the world are you guys doing this? And and that's absolutely true. It is a problem. If you need parts, you need to have certain ways to find them, and sometimes you need to pull on some strings to get it done. Um, until now, I always got it done, but it's not simple. And like you said, it's becoming more and more expensive, and that's another reason why we need to change the plan. That's why we made that call. Things need to change because, for instance, a barrel of nitromethane, not so long
Yes,
ago
that's up too.
not so long ago it was 12, $1,400. Now it's over 1,800. And
Yes,
you can say, well, okay, but we got two runs out of it. Engine oil, spark plugs, bearings, pistons. We got great sponsors, but we also still need to pay for our parts. Uh,
yes,
it's tires. Buy a set of tires. It's a set of tires. Rear tires is over $2,000. If you're unlucky, you can only get one run out of them. It's it's getting more and more expensive, and you cannot even talk about the money side of things because you need to be happy you are able to buy it.
yes,
Don't start about what it costs because that's not a topic. It's about the availability. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Lex, with this being the beginning of your off season, unless some major sponsor says we got unlimited income for you to go to Dallas, Las Vegas, or Pomona, what's next? You talk about finding sponsorship. That could take some time.
yeah.
Finding a marquee or a major sponsor could potentially take even longer. There's some cars that didn't have a sponsor for a while, and then eventually by being out there they got a sponsor. So it all
Yeah.
depends on, like, Brittany Force, I don't know, 8 years ago or whatever. Before she got Monster, she was just racing out there with a black panel on the dragster, and then eventually she got Monster Energy. But it all depends on who you know and
Yeah.
the connections that you have that could potentially lead to something today.
And that's exactly how it is. It's who you know. It's not what you know, but who you know. And um, that's one of I won't say struggles, but I cannot really find another word right now. Coming here to the US and then find your way through it, to create your network takes a long time. If you look around you and see the other teams, 9 out of 10, the partnerships and sponsorships they have is through people they know,
Yes.
or people they know who know people. And that's where we got to struggle because we don't know that many people that are in a certain position that can say, hey, company, you need to take a look at those people, those guys, because that can work out really good for you. Which husband and wife team in NHRA is doing the same thing we are doing?
No one.
No, I cannot. Well, let's put it different. There are companies out there that would love to work with us because of that. But the thing is, we need to get us in front of them. And
Correct.
there are so many gatekeepers nowadays that keep people like us from away from decision makers. That how do you get to that? That's the question. And
Yes.
that's the hardball we need to play. But I know there are companies out there that would love to work with us because, hey, I don't need sponsors. I don't want to get money for free. I want to work for it.
Yes.
The return on the investment needs to be there. If people want to work with us, I will make sure they get a return on their investment. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I want to own my own teams, because then I know for sure we will make it happen.
Yes.
And those things are the challenges, and not only for us, for our team. Don't get me wrong, there are more small teams out there that are facing the same problems. But what do you do? So I'm keep working at it, and I will make sure it will happen. And in the meantime, I'm also working on some ideas to start my own company again. I'm working on if you see that Brute Extreme, I'm working on that
Yes.
right now with a partner in the Netherlands. We are setting up an e-commerce store that will be live in a couple of weeks, and that will then also be live here in the USA. If we cannot find partners and sponsors, then we're going to create our own partnerships and
Yep.
sponsorships. What better than to sponsor your own race car? Because
Yes.
that's what's happening nowadays anyway.
Yes.
And if I can put my own brand in front of a 30 million people only here in the US, hey, it's another idea. So in the meantime, I keep working on things like that as well.
Yes. Finally, Lex, you talked about, or you alluded to, wanting a kind of a large team. You said go full time one year, full time next year, and then
Yep.
maybe have a rental driver. Um, do you have a goal for that? Because that could take a few years, like you said. And could it be two top fuel cars? Could it be a funny car? Maybe you go back into a funny car. You said one day maybe I want to get back into one.
Well, my picture right now, what I got in my head, and that's you need to have a goal to work to. What I would
Yes.
like to see is I would like to see two top fuel cars and one funny car. Yeah.
Okay. So
And
so three cars.
yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the limit. And I believe, look at NHRA drag racing nowadays. The big teams are not here anymore. Uh, the I think it's really good for the sport not to create any big teams anymore. I think two is really the limit. But at the same time, if you can have two cars, it can work out really good for partners and sponsors, because you can go back and forward. And if one of those sponsors or partners just fall out, then you got enough others to make up for it. And in
Yes.
the meantime, to keep working away at it and put some really nice and neat programs together.
Yes, very true. And you see a lot of teams that have the multi car teams. They put the sponsor on both of the cars sometimes. Well, a
Yeah.
lot of times they do. Or like Don Schumacher,
Yeah.
years ago, they would have when he had the multiple funny cars and the dragsters. He would put like Napa on, well, Ron Caps's car, but then he would have it on associate sponsor on the dragsters.
Yes. And that was always a big thing, for a lot of sponsors, because they got their name on more than one car. So I can see that, but at the same time, I also believe, like with teams like ours, if you are a sponsor or a partner with our team, you are the sponsor and the partner. There are not 10 or 12 others. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the downside. So we can give them a lot more bang for their buck, and a lot more attention, because they are the customer. Because
Yes.
partners are customers, and they need to be treated well. And I know one thing: when you treat people and when you treat your customers well, that it will work out really good, and they will stay a customer. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the long haul.
Yes. Well, thank you for your time tonight, Lex. Good luck in 2023 if no big sponsor comes along for the final 3 races of the season. Everyone outside of being on Facebook Live right now and YouTube Live, this video will be available for playback at any time whenever you're available. Also, this will be put on Rumble, BitChute, and converted into a podcast on Anchor.fm in the coming days. Thanks again, Lex, for your time tonight. And like I said, good luck in 2023 when you do hit the track again. Hopefully, you can find the sponsors that you need to make a bigger impact with your race team in 2023.
Really appreciate the time, Anthony. It was great to be on your show. And one thing, don't forget it, never quit.
Yes.
Thank you.